A few seconds of indescribable terror on runway 35 left. Too many people die in an instant.
I have trusted Florida foster care people to care for my baby.
You dead, you will get buried, life goes on after that doesn't listen to their parents, trying to be grown.
The internet is full of strange and unsettling places, but some corners of the web go far beyond disturbing. Like this one, for example. The world of flying is often a scary and complex one. It's critical for pilots to properly check their aircraft before taking off. It was a lesson that even an 18-year-old pilot in training named Connor Quisenberry understood all too well. Connor was a dedicated student at ATP Flight School with one mission in life: to become a licensed pilot. He had already completed countless classes and logged many flight hours. And now, at just 18 years old, he was only a few steps away from obtaining his private pilot's license. The biggest obstacle being the high number of required flight hours. On the night of September 27, 2023, Connor was scheduled for one of those crucial flights, a 3-hour nighttime journey that would bring him closer to that coveted goal. Joining him in the cockpit that evening was 22-year-old flight instructor Timothy McKeler. Timothy wasn't Connor's usual instructor. In fact, this was the first time the two had ever flown together. But on this night, McKeler had been the only available instructor to supervise the flight. From the start, it was clear this would not be a smooth evening, and tragically, it would also be their last flight together. Connor, understanding the importance of pre-flight safety checks, began performing a thorough inspection of the aircraft, exactly the kind of preparation most instructors would want to see from their students. But apparently, not McKeler. Unbeknownst to Connor, his instructor had pulled out his phone during the inspection, recording a video for his Snapchat. The post was scathing. Despite Connor doing nothing out of the ordinary, McKeler mocked him, writing, "Glad he ain't my full-time student. I've seen faster movement at the Special Olympics." It was clear that McKeler wanted no part of this flight. The tension between the two was already building, and the instructor's passive-aggressive attitude only grew worse from there. Another Snapchat followed, with a caption that made his frustration even clearer. "I don't have to be up at 4:30 a.m. tomorrow or nothing. Let's take our sweet-ass time and have a conversation instead of getting this 3-hour flight done." But no level of frustration could excuse this behavior. Because at the end of the day, McKeler was the instructor. He was there to guide and support Connor, not belittle him behind his back on social media. Yet that was exactly what was happening. Even as Connor tried to focus on his task, McKeler continued tapping his fingers obnoxiously on the plane, making it clear to the young student that he was seen as a burden. The Snapchats didn't stop there. Soon, the two were inside the plane and had begun their flight. Now, of course, some context was missing. Perhaps Connor had said something that frustrated McKeler, or perhaps he hadn't been responsive to feedback. But that theory was quickly dismissed by yet another Snapchat.
1.6 hours into the flight of me giving it to him straight up. "Forrest, I don't mind you being hard on me, I know I need it." Me thinking to myself, did you really think I cared if you minded? But what I actually said is that we're flying planes, not driving cars. We can't have these weak areas this far in the game.
The caption seemed to confirm that Connor was doing his best to learn and improve. Bro is getting better with radio calls, though. Clearly, Connor was trying. He was just 18 years old, a student still learning, still gaining experience, but none of that seemed to matter to McKeler. And tragically, the worst was yet to come. Shortly after takeoff, McKeler posted what would be his final Snapchat. "Headed our way like a group of pissed-off hornets," he wrote, alongside a screenshot of the weather radar, showing heavy storms in the path ahead. Moments later, the small plane lost contact with air traffic control and vanished into the stormy night sky. It didn't take long for search teams to locate the wreckage, using McKeller's final Snapchat post to help pinpoint the last known location. The plane was found in a wooded area behind a church. The crash had been violent, caused by turbulence from the powerful storm. Inside the mangled wreck were the bodies of both Connor Quisenberry and Timothy McKeler. Neither had survived. For Connor, his final night on Earth had been spent under relentless ridicule, not only in person, but broadcast for others to see online. And now, those Snapchats live on. Some of the most disturbing and heartbreaking content you can find related to this tragic case. But this next piece of footage I came across might be even more disturbing. Let's take a look. It all began in September of 1985. A lone hunter trudges through the remote woods of Christy Creek, Montana, tracking something big. He'd been hunting a large black bear and had managed to land a single shot. The wounded animal took off, leaving behind a trail of blood winding deep into the forest. The hunter followed it for miles, expecting to find his prize. But what he stumbled across was something far more chilling. At the bottom of a shallow ditch, he found a body. But not the bear he'd been hunting. It was the skeletal remains of a young woman, reduced to bone. Her remains were quickly sent for forensic analysis, but there was little to go on. All they could determine was that she had been young and murdered. 2 bullet holes were discovered in her skull, but little else could be learned. With no identity and no leads, the FBI assigned a special team to create a forensic composite, a reconstruction of what this Jane Doe might have looked like in life. They named her Christy Crystal Creek. The result was unsettling, the first in a series of attempts to give this victim a face once again. The uncanniness of these reconstructions is undeniable. Recently, I've found myself going down the rabbit hole of disturbing police sketches and facial recreations. While they can be powerful tools for solving cases, they can also appear hauntingly inhuman. Many of these images have since been posted to the FBI's website in hopes of enlisting the public's help. Some have even gained a kind of dark notoriety, like a case decades later in 2014. On June 5, 2014, highway workers mowing grass in Geneva, Wisconsin, noticed something strange. 2 foul-smelling suitcases discarded near the roadside. Inside were 2 bodies, both women, both in various stages of decomposition. Both appeared to have been strangled. One was quickly identified as 37-year-old Laura Simonson, but the other was far more difficult to identify. The state of her remains made it nearly impossible to distinguish her facial features. Still, investigators tried. They produced a facial reconstruction that would become one of the most infamous, not because it led to answers, but because of how unnatural it looked. The image quickly became a meme and was even referenced in a video game. But of all these cases, there is one that has always stayed with me. A story that gives me an uneasy feeling every time I revisit it. It dates all the way back to April 1977. A couple in Alberta, Canada, returned to their usually abandoned cabin to perform maintenance, specifically to empty the septic tank. But when they opened it, they discovered a nightmare. A body floating inside. The victim had been horrifically tortured, beaten, mutilated, burned with cigarettes, and shot multiple times. The body's condition made identification impossible. Still, a reconstruction was attempted. Using a computer model of the man's skull, forensic experts slowly pieced together a digital face. The unidentified victim became known by a haunting nickname, Septic Tank Sam. There's something deeply tragic about these composites. These are real people, with real names, real stories, reduced to eerie artificial images and, in many cases, tacky nicknames. But there's another side to these sketches. Because when the images depict not victims, but unknown suspects, they can become downright terrifying. Over the years, numerous unidentified killers have forced law enforcement to rely on sketches and reconstructions in hopes of generating leads. One of the most chilling examples is that of the Lake Bowm killer. It was June 5, 1960. 4 Finnish teenagers were camping on the shores of Lake Bowm, sleeping peacefully in their tent, until a brutal attack shattered the night. A man wielding a knife began stabbing through the tent's walls, then bludgeoned the victims with an unidentified blunt object. 3 of the teens were killed. 1, the lone survivor, was gravely injured, but lived to tell what little he could. He described the attacker as dressed in black, with disturbingly large red eyes. Based on his account and a few other potential sightings, a police sketch was produced. The result was unsettling. It became known by the nickname Bug-Eyed Man, due to the almost inhuman appearance of the eyes. Looking at all of these reconstructions, one has to ask, do they actually work? Do they help solve cases? Surprisingly, in these examples, 3 out of the 4 have led to identifications. Christy Creek was eventually identified as 23-year-old Janet Lee Lucas, the final known victim of serial killer Wayne Nance. This was made possible thanks to advances in forensic genealogy. The second example, the Wisconsin suitcase victim, was identified as Jenny Games. She had been murdered by Steven Zellick, a man later dubbed the Wisconsin suitcase murderer. Incredibly, despite the strange appearance of her reconstruction, it was that very image that led to her identification. A family member recognized the exaggerated cheekbones and matched them to Jenny. And then there was Septic Tank Sam, who was revealed to be Gordon Edwin Sanderson, also through genetic genealogy. A sample from his sister's DNA confirmed the match. Sadly, his killer remains unknown to this day. That leaves just one mystery unsolved: the Lake Bowm killer. He has never been identified, but that hasn't stopped speculation. Shortly after the murders, a funeral was held in honor of the victims, attended by a large crowd. Among the mourners, a photo was taken, and in the center of the crowd stood a man whose features looked impossible. He was never photographed again. His connection to the murders remains unconfirmed. And to this day, the case of the Lake Bowm killings remains unsolved. But what about those cases where the cause of death isn't a mystery, because it was caught on tape for the world to see? That's exactly what happened on August 31st, 1988. At the Dallas-Fort Worth airport, passengers slowly began boarding their morning flight. The plane, a Boeing 727, sat motionless on the tarmac as 78 passengers took their seats, all preparing for the scheduled trip to Salt Lake City, Utah. In the cockpit that day was an experienced crew: Captain Larry Davis, First Officer Kerry Kirkland, and Flight Engineer Stephen Judd. Together, they had logged over 30,000 hours of flight time. But it was an unusually windy day, the kind of weather that made even seasoned pilots cautious. By the time the aircraft had taxied to the runway, air traffic control had issued a hold, instructing the crew to remain stationary for an extra minute as wind gusts continued to intensify. And so, with the engines idling and the plane temporarily paused, the crew found themselves with a moment to talk.
We forgot something on our first leg today. We forgot to discuss about the dating habits of our flight attendants so we could get it on the recorder, you know, in case we crashed, and the media would have some kind of a juicy tidbit.
Is that what you're looking for?
That voice you hear is First Officer Kerry Kirkland. making what seemed like an offhand comment about discussing the dating habits of their flight attendants, joking that it would give the media something to talk about if they crashed. As bizarre as the comment sounded, Carrie was referencing another well-known aviation disaster, the crash of Flight 1713.
A few seconds of indescribable terror on runway 35 left. Too many people die in an instant. We ask again, why them and not us?
That crash, which had occurred less than a year earlier, had made international headlines. The pilots of Flight 1713 had been awaiting takeoff in a brutal blizzard, and instead of focusing on their pre-flight procedures, they had engaged in casual conversation, joking and laughing about the dating lives of their cabin crew. Lost in that distraction, they had forgotten to properly de-ice the plane. Moments after takeoff, the aircraft barely lifted off the ground before stalling and crashing, killing 28 people on board, including the 2 pilots. Following that tragedy, new regulations had been introduced, mandating that pilots keep all conversation focused solely on the takeoff process until the plane was safely airborne. But here was Carrie, ironically referencing that very crash, and unknowingly creating the same type of distraction in the cockpit. This time, it wasn't just idle chat.
We were just talking yesterday, about 191 seems to be the classic airline crash that the news media goes for every time.
Even the captain joined in. And then came one last bit of gallows humor from Carrie.
Yeah, that Continental that crashed in Denver? Did you read that? Yeah, they were talking about the dating habits of one of the flight attendants. Had a real nice laugh, We got to leave something for our wife and children to listen to.
He was well aware of how much the media loved a sensational plane crash story. What he didn't realize was that in just a few short moments, they were about to give them another.
Power set. Engine instruments look good. Airspeed's coming up both sides. VR, D2. Whoa. Engine failure. We got an engine failure. We're not gonna make it. 141. Full power on.
Just 22 seconds after the wheels left the runway, Flight 1141 began rolling sharply to the right. The wing clipped the runway, igniting a fire as it struck a nearby antenna. The plane was instantly out of control, unable to gain altitude, trapped in a shallow, desperate descent. Moments later, it crashed into the dirt beyond the runway, skidding more than 1,000 feet before finally coming to a halt. In the wreckage, 14 people lost their lives, including 2 flight attendants. Miraculously, the rest of the passengers survived, as did the voices heard on that chilling cockpit recording. All 3 crew members were fired, though none faced criminal charges. But the cause of the crash was clear: human error. In their distracted conversation, the crew had forgotten a critical step in the takeoff process. They had failed to lower the wing flaps and slats. Without them, the plane had no chance of a successful takeoff. Which means that the final words spoken inside that cockpit, joking about past crashes and distracted pilots, became some of the most chillingly ironic ever recorded. And today, that audio lives on. One more disturbing oddity in the darker corners of the internet. But what's even more disturbing? Well, I'm certain it's this next piece of footage. It happened on January 22nd, 2017. When a 14-year-old girl named Nika Venant went live on Facebook with a chilling caption beneath her stream. In that live stream, Nika opened up about how difficult her life had been. She'd been placed in and out of countless foster homes, where her treatment ranged from neglectful to outright abusive. Years of this constant mistreatment had pushed her to a breaking point. And based on the title of the stream, it was heartbreakingly clear what her intentions were going to be. As the live stream continued, hundreds of viewers flooded in, word spreading quickly that something terrible was unfolding live on camera. But you wouldn't know it from looking at the chat. According to many who watched, the majority of comments were filled with cruelty, not compassion. Instead of recognizing Nika's words as a cry for help, many mocked her, calling her names, laughing, and posting cruel emojis. Rather than urging her to stop, many in the chat actively pushed her to go through with her plan, and tragically, she did. All while the camera kept rolling. Even after Nika had passed away, the vile behavior in the chat didn't stop. Whether they thought the stream was staged or simply didn't care, the insults only grew more disgusting. And it went beyond words. People who knew her began posting parody videos online, mocking the position in which she had died, all while her live stream remained active for over an hour, until police were finally called and arrived to retrieve her body. Facebook shut the stream down shortly after. It was an awful situation in every way. But what struck many as most heartbreaking was the simple reason Nika gave for her decision. She said she just wanted to be with her real mother, the person she loved most in the world. And this had seemed to be her plan all along. In the aftermath, her mother, Gina Alexis, held a press conference where she spoke about the tragedy.
Her biological mother broke down while speaking about her daughter's death. She dreamed of one day being reunited permanently.
I have trusted Florida foster care people to care for my baby.
Gina publicly blamed the foster care system, accusing it of failing to protect her daughter and failing to reunite them. The emotional nature of the story quickly went viral, with widespread public sympathy pouring in for Gina. But soon, people began asking deeper questions about what had really led up to the live stream, and what investigators uncovered made the case even more disturbing. On the day Nika ended her life, it was revealed that Gina had been watching the live stream, both before and after it happened. She saw her daughter's mental breakdown unfold in real time, along with the cruel comments in the chat. At first, this revelation made many feel even more sympathy for Gina. The idea of watching your own child suffer that way was unimaginable. But then came an even darker discovery. Investigators learned that Gina hadn't just watched. She had joined in.
Hashtag ADHD games played, you sad little DCF custody. That's why you are where you're at. For this dumb shit and more, you keep crying wolf. You dead, you will get buried, life goes on after that doesn't listen to their parents, trying to be grown, seeking boys and girls' attention instead of her books.
In that same live stream, where one of the last things Nika said was that she wanted so badly to be reunited with her mother, Gina was there in the chat, pushing her to go through with it. One of her comments read, "It doesn't matter if you live or die. Life goes on." And it got worse. The media also uncovered the original reason Nika had been removed from her mother's custody. When Nika was just 6 years old, Gina had beaten her over 30 times with a belt. Even in the years since, Gina's behavior toward her daughter remained cruel. Text messages revealed she repeatedly told Nika she wanted nothing to do with her. And when the young girl reached out, simply asking to see her brother, Gina replied by telling the caseworker,
"The girl is y'all's problem. I'm done with the games."
and then sent middle finger emojis to her own daughter. And that was only part of it. Other details uncovered by investigators were so disturbing that many outlets chose not to publish them at all. Yet after Nika's death, Gina had the audacity to appear on television, attempting to garner sympathy, claiming that all she'd ever wanted was to be her daughter's mother, despite having rejected her again and again. And while many thought the story ended there, it didn't. When editing this video, something strange stood out. Nika's Facebook page is still active. It's no longer posting original content, but instead is now consistently reposting from another page. one run by Gina herself. After her daughter's death, Gina seemingly took control of Nika's Facebook account. Since then, she has used it to post her own content, including attempts to defend her actions, trying to justify the fact that she gave up on her daughter.
Tell me what mother would accept a 13 going on 14-year-old in and out of detention centers, going to jail or getting arrested while in foster care.
People be like, you heard the rumors going around about you? And I did. But they forgot to tell you one thing. That I don't give a fuck. Huh? What's my name? My first name is Very Much. My last name is Unbombed.
She's even used the page to promote her own podcast, attempting to build an online career as an influencer. And in some of those videos, she gives parenting advice. A shocking move, considering everything that came to light about her past behavior.
Like, there's so much stuff that parents need to do for their child that they're not motherfucking doing. They're not paying attention because they're taking the easy way out.
All of this has made it painfully clear. Gina shows little to no remorse for what she did, and for her role in one of the most tragic live-streamed events the internet has ever witnessed. But there's more. Like this next piece of footage that was captured around 7:30 a.m. on a warm July morning in 2019. 17-year-old Bethany Martin and a 16-year-old friend had decided to walk to a nearby gas station in their San Antonio neighborhood. As they followed their usual path, it brought them alongside a drainage ditch, a spot often filled with litter and discarded junk. But on this particular morning, something unusual caught their eye. At first, it looked like a man crouched against the concrete wall, but the closer they got, the more they noticed that something wasn't right. His posture seemed unnatural, his body eerily still. And when the girls finally came face to face with him, the truth became horrifyingly clear. They had just discovered a dead body. It was the kind of moment that would leave anyone traumatized, let alone two teenagers. After calling the police and giving their statements, the girls were sent home. But as they made their way back, the gravity of what they had witnessed gave way to a very different idea. They would share their experience online. So as soon as they got home, they began setting up lights and a camera to film a TikTok. The short clip showed them sitting on a couch, seemingly in shock. The text on the screen read, "Us remembering we found a dead body this morning." The caption beneath it simply said,
I wish we were kidding. All respect to the family.
The video quickly divided viewers. Some expressed sympathy, while others saw the post as incredibly insensitive and exploitative. And for many, the complete lack of context led them to believe it might not even be real. But that doubt was erased less than 24 hours later, when it was revealed that this TikTok wasn't the only video the girls had filmed that day. That morning, Bethany and her friend had stumbled upon the body of 25-year-old Marcus Adams. It appeared Marcus had taken his own life just hours before. But rather than reacting with shock or sadness, the girls' attention was immediately drawn to something else, a necklace Marcus was wearing. The 16-year-old commented that it matched her outfit perfectly. And so, before the police arrived, they began recording again. This time, the video showed Bethany approaching Marcus's body, reaching for the necklace. She removed the medallion, handed it to her friend, and then tossed the chain into the nearby grass. Afterward, the two girls ran from the scene. But it didn't end there. The 16-year-old posted that video to her Snapchat story for all of her close friends to see. The footage is deeply disturbing. Even without visuals, the audio alone makes it clear they were laughing and having fun throughout the entire act.
Now or never. Here, hold me. Oh my god, oh my god, oh my god. Oh my god, oh my god.
there's something uniquely unsettling about it: the complete lack of empathy. For these girls, stealing from the body of a young man who had just ended his life seemed more like an opportunity than a tragedy. And if that wasn't horrifying enough, they then posted the TikTok attempting to garner sympathy, all while reportedly wearing the very same medallion they had stolen, not just in that clip, but in several other videos filmed after. But their actions would have even more devastating consequences. Someone who had seen the Snapchat story downloaded the footage and posted it, uncensored, to an app called Nextdoor. Tragically, it was there that many members of Marcus Adams's own family first saw the video. Several of them hadn't even been informed that Marcus had passed. The day after the TikTok was posted, both girls were brought in for police questioning once the footage had been reported. Bethany was charged with theft from a human corpse, though she ultimately avoided serious jail time. The 16-year-old's name and any charges were never made public, but it was confirmed that the stolen medallion was returned to Marcus's family. In the days that followed, Bethany returned to TikTok to share her side of the story. In a half-hearted apology, she claimed that her friend had pressured her into stealing the necklace, and had also convinced her to film the sympathy-seeking TikTok because it would get a lot of views. Unsurprisingly, her attempt to shift the blame didn't go over well, because for those who saw what really happened, there was no justification for what these girls had done. If you thought these first 5 were unsettling, then brace yourself. This last one is even more heartbreaking. Reddit is home to a lot of disturbing content, but sometimes a post appears that needs no context at all because its darkness speaks for itself. This particular thread was one of those cases. It was a simple question posted to r Ask Reddit. Redditors who know how much time they have left, how does your day look like? The post went viral almost instantly as hundreds of people began responding, many of them terminally ill. Their answers were raw, unfiltered, and devastating to read. One user wrote, "ALS rapidly progressing. Every day I get worse. Couldn't get my shirt on today. Not really enough strength and energy to eat, though I am being yelled at for losing weight. No pain, for which I am thankful, but unable to do most things we take for granted. I have T-Rex arms now. Probably won't be able to walk or stand in the next few weeks. I am working hard to get the prescription for death with dignity. This is not how I want to live. I think I'll be lucky to make it to Christmas, more like early November at this rate. I don't want to live like this anymore." Another user shared, "My days are a mixed bag. Some days I don't want to get out of bed, and when I do, I can't seem to find the energy to leave the house. I have tumors all over my spine, so when things go really bad for me, my legs will probably be the first to go. This is my time, and it took me a lot of dying before I could take a deep breath and let go of the stress of living. Sometimes the best thing you can do is crack a beer and watch some TV and not feel guilty about it. It's easy to feel like you absolutely need to make each day count, but if I'm happy, I'm happy." And the examples continued from there. So many users came together to share their experiences, and it was fascinating in a heartbreaking way to see how different their answers were. Some seemed to have found peace, embracing positivity even in the face of what was coming. Others were still struggling, trying to come to terms with their fate, and haunted by guilt over what they were putting their families through, and what their families would soon face once they were gone. It was all incredibly painful to read. But what makes this thread even worse is something I haven't mentioned yet. This post is now more than 5 years old, and when you scroll through it today, the silence is deafening. Almost all of the accounts behind those top replies have now gone inactive. No new posts, no updates. For most of them, it seems that their final posts really were their final words to the world. This thread is no longer a place where people are sharing what their last days will look like. It's now a haunting glimpse into what their last days did look like. And in my opinion, it remains one of the most painful threads I've ever come across on Reddit. That's all for today, folks. If you want to see more of this creepy content, click on the video on screen.